1. On the night of our wedding, Ju Yuan eloped with his adopted sister. He only left a letter, telling me to take care of his paralyzed mother in bed, and that he would come back to consummate the marriage after he had his fill of fun. At the end, he repeatedly assured me not to worry, saying he wouldn't make me wait long. I was both joyful and tangled. Then I quickly dismissed the servants, sold off the farmland and ancestral house, took the silver, and hastily moved 1,000 miles away. I couldn't help it. I'd been a greedy woman since I was a child. Using this to test me was simply unethical. My maternal grandfather was a great Confucian scholar of his time, but he never held an official position because he was noble in character and indifferent to fame and fortune, so he worked as a teacher all his life. He had students all over the world, taught hundreds of Xianxia, successful candidates in the highest imperial examination, in his life. And even Tu Zhuangyuan, top scorer in the imperial examination. Thus, he was honored as the teacher of the world. But so what? He refused to accept gifts and even subsidized those poor scholars who were on the verge of starvation with his own money, so he lived in poverty all his life. My father couldn't stand hardship and ran away with a wealthy widow. The family's farmland was seized by the aristocracy. To support me, my mother said she would go to Yangzhou to do business. But she never came back. I lived with my grandfather, eating sweet potato porridge with pickles every meal. It made me almost lose my love for the world. However, many of his students were children of noble families and wealthy merchants. These rich guys wore gold and silver, were surrounded by servants, and had mountains of delicacies and fine wines, but they only took one bite and shouted that it was hard to swallow, then told the servants to throw it all away to feed the dogs. Watching them squander money every day, my heart gradually turned dark and distorted, so I secretly started a grey business writing homework for those rich guys. One tale of silver per assignment. I knew my grandfather best, and the homework I wrote was most to his liking. Those useless rich guys flocked to me. Soon, I made a fortune and got to eat big meat buns and chicken legs. But I was soon reported by several poor scholars. They stuck out their necks and said, "The sages said that honesty is the foundation of a gentleman's conduct. Helping them cheat is simply bringing shame to Master Cheng." I was beaten by my grandfather until I jumped up and down. But the rich guys only had to copy the *analects of Confucius once and promised to study hard in the future. And the matter was over. Those poor scholars even clapped their hands and cheered beside them, me. The rich guys' families could send their sons to the best private schools from thousands of miles away, but without my grandfather's subsidy, you couldn't even afford to go to school. They have money and power, and they study hard. What good does that do you? I continued to twist and darken in hunger, cold and hatred. Countless evil thoughts flashed through my mind. My sinful little hands couldn't help but want to reach into those rich guys' pockets from time to time. After all, the wealth of those noble families was also obtained by exploiting the people. Corrupt officials occupied farmland by virtue of their power. The court collected 10% tax, but they demanded 12% from the people. Profiteers were even more unscrupulous. They hoarded goods to drive up prices, and even spread plagues everywhere just to sell some medicinal herbs. None of them were good people. So what if I took a little from their pockets? But those damn poor bookworms were keeping an eye on me. They were so stupid from studying that they brainwashed me with benevolence and morality every day. Yes, they didn't go to educate those rich guys about benevolence and morality, but educated me, a little girl who couldn't even eat her fill. Whenever I had a little evil thought, they reported me to my grandfather. My twisted and dark heart could only be forcibly suppressed. My vigorous ambition had to turn to sneaky development, too. Just when my desire for money was about to be uncontrollable, Xiaohong, a maid at the Liu mansion, came home to visit her mother. She told me that the Liu mansion's master had married a second wife, and that the lady was kind-hearted, which was why she was given a day off. When talking about the new lady, she opened up. She said the lady was very beautiful, and Master Liu cherished her very much. He gave her 2 large boxes full of gold and silver as soon as she entered the mansion. My head was buzzing. I didn't remember anything except the 2 large boxes full of gold and silver. When I went home that day, I looked at myself in the water tank repeatedly. I was also beautiful. Many of my grandfather's students, who were wealthy, lusted after my beauty. If I also married a rich man, I would have as much gold and silver as I wanted, but my grandfather only cared about character, not family background, when choosing a husband for me. He said those people were all after official connections, because many officials in the court were his students. Marrying his granddaughter would bring them a lot of care in their official careers. I didn't care what his reasons were, having money was enough, wasn't it? I was so anxious that I walked around in circles. I had to take the initiative myself. I observed for a long time, although most noble families were rich, they also had many brothers and sisters, dozens of legitimate and illegitimate children. The family property would only get smaller and smaller when divided, until I found Zhu Yuan. His family had been officials for generations and accumulated a lot of wealth, but the family was not prosperous. By his father's generation, it was already 3 generations of only sons. Unfortunately, his father died early before he could take many concubines. He only left Zhu Yuan as his only son. And an adopted orphan girl. I targeted him, and he also targeted me, so we hit it off immediately. I taught him how to gain my grandfather's trust. He was also talented and understood everything with just a hint. We soon got engaged, but it was as if my grandfather had fulfilled his wish, and he passed away soon after. After 3 years of mourning for my grandfather, Zhu Yuan sent someone to pick me up to Yongju, and I finally married Zhu Yuan. After 3 years of mourning, my originally restless heart had become somewhat calm. I originally thought that marrying Zhu Yuan and having no worries about food and clothing for the rest of my life would satisfy me. But Zhu Yuan didn't even enter the bridal chamber. He disappeared. The letter was delivered by Steward Zhu. He wrote, "Fua has always wanted to see Jiangnan. She couldn't go all these years because she had to take care of mother. Now that I have you, I can finally take her there. Stay at home and take good care of mother and manage the family property. Don't worry about consummating the marriage. I will come back after I have a good time with Fua. Don't worry. This trip will take at least 3 months and at most a year and a half. I won't make you wait long. You just need to keep your duty and wait for me to come home." Zhu Fu was the orphan girl adopted by the Zhu family, and she and Zhu Yuan were childhood sweethearts. They had been inseparable since childhood, but when they grew up, their behaviors seemed a bit inappropriate in the eyes of others. Zhu Yuan would eat the same bowl of sweet porridge with her, eat the half piece of pastry she left, personally choose her underclothes for her, and even draw her eyebrows and apply powder for her by hand. These behaviors, which were considered overstepping the bounds by others, were only the natural care of an elder brother for his younger sister in Zhu Yuan's eyes. Once, a busybody gossiped about them disregarding ethics. He severely beat that person, breaking his leg. I only heard about these things after I came to Yongju. Zhu Yuan said these were all rumors spread by those gossipy people. Moreover, after he realized that those inappropriate behaviors were wrong, he had corrected them one by one. I believed him at that time, or maybe I didn't care at all. Seeing me holding the letter without saying a word, Steward Zhu raised his eyes to look at my expression, only to find that I looked excited and my eyes were eager to try. He thought for a moment, then quickly made up for Zhu Yuan. Young master and young lady have a deep brother-sister bond. He is just afraid that something will happen to young lady if she goes out alone. Madam, please don't misunderstand. Only then did I realize that my reaction was too intense. So I coughed lightly and gave him a calm smile. If that's the case, I will rest assured and wait for my husband to come back. Steward Zhu breathed a sigh of relief when he heard this, bowed and retreated. Several discussions came from outside the door. The new wife suffered such a great humiliation, yet she can bear it. Others definitely can't bear it, but she's different. I heard her family is gone. How dare she make trouble? It seems that in the future, young master and young lady will still be in charge of this mansion. Keep your eyes open. You must know in your heart who to serve wholeheartedly in the future. I clenched my fists to prevent myself from trembling with excitement. They were right. I was indeed enduring, and enduring very hard. Zhu Yuan ran away, leaving such a big family property behind. The entire Zhu family, apart from the servants, only had a paralyzed old lady in bed. It was obvious that he was letting me take over the family. This was simply the ultimate test of my morality and conscience. The twisted madness that had been suppressed for 3 years surged up. The corners of my mouth began to rise uncontrollably. Looking around, every item in the room shone with golden light in my eyes. Mine, all mine. 5. Early the next morning, I went to see Mother Jew. As soon as she saw me, she cursed, "Useless thing, you can't even keep your own husband. And you have the face to see me. If it weren't for your incompetence, how could my son, a good man, do such an immoral thing?" She had been paralyzed in bed for many years. Although she cursed fiercely, she could only vent her anger with words. After she finished cursing, gasping for breath, I said calmly, "What is Mother talking about? It's just my husband going out to play with his own sister. What do you think it is? Immoral? Where did that come from?" Mother Jew was choked by me and was lost for words immediately. She realized she had said something wrong, and her momentum dropped instantly. I leaned over and tucked the quilt corner that had slipped off for her. "My husband also told me to take good care of Mother. If Mother has any orders, daughter-in-law will do her best." She didn't expect me to say that, and the words she had prepared to manipulate me suddenly got stuck in her throat. The servants only knew that my family was gone and thought I married Ju Yuan by the Ju family's mercy, but Mother Ju knew clearly that Ju Yuan was going to be an official in the future and would need the care of his fellow disciples. He married me because of the connections my grandfather had in the court. She was fierce to me just now because Ju Yuan was in the wrong for eloping. She needed to take the initiative to manipulate me to prevent me from making trouble. Now seeing my response, she didn't know what to do for a moment, so she had to laugh awkwardly and said, "It's good that you don't envy Fua. She and Yuan grew up together and have always had a deep relationship. If it weren't for, in short, as long as you keep your duty, Yuan and Fua will tolerate you." I sneered in my heart. Sure enough, birds of a feather flocked together. 5. The Ju family wanted to use my grandfather's connections to pave the way for Ju Yuan's official career. Yet they refused to wrong their adopted daughter-in-law. If I'd really waited for Ju Yuan to pass the imperial examination and secure an official position, I, his nominal wife, would probably have been discarded. I clutched my handkerchief, pretending to wipe away tears, my voice trembling with grievance and sobs. Hubby specifically told me to take good care of the family estate. I was so eager to share Mother's burdens and let him pursue his career without worries. But now it seems Mother doesn't regard me as family. Since I can't help, and only end up making Mother angry, I think I'd better return to Qingju. With that, I made to turn and leave. "Wait," Mother Ju called out anxiously, panic flashing in her eyes. If I really left, word would spread that Ju Yuan had eloped with his adopted sister, driving his new wife away in anger. The Ju family's reputation and Ju Yuan's future would be ruined completely. She weighed the pros and cons quickly, forcing a twisted, amiable smile. "Why are you being so childish? I just spoke out of anxiety, said a few harsh words, and now you want to leave? Come back at once." I halted, my shoulders shaking slightly as I faced away from her, as if still weeping. In truth, I was struggling to hold back laughter. When I didn't turn around, she grew flustered and called out hastily, "Steward Ju, from today onward, the young madam shall take charge of all affairs in the mansion. Hand over all account books and storehouse keys to her. My health is poor, I'll rest easy from now on. Let the young madam handle these trivial matters. Don't bother me with them again." I broke into a tearful smile, turned around, and bowed respectfully. "Thank you for your trust, Mother. I shall do my utmost to manage the household affairs flawlessly, so that hubby can focus on his career without worries and Mother can recuperate in peace." 6. The reason she handed over control of the household so readily was all thanks to my grandfather's lifelong integrity. Everyone assumed that having grown up under his tutelage, I must have inherited his indifference to fame and fortune. Unfortunately, I was a bad seed that had gone astray. 7. On the afternoon I took over the account books, I shut myself in the study, 3 main ledgers and 12 detailed subledgers stacked up to half my height. I rolled up my sleeves, ground an ink stick, and dove right in. Steward Ju stood by with his hands clasped behind his back, waiting to watch me flounder amid the tedious accounts. I flipped through the pages at lightning speed, The Zhu family had amassed a fortune over several generations, 13 prosperous shops in Yongju City, 800 mu of fertile farmland on the outskirts, 2 rural manors, and over 3,000 pieces of jewelry, calligraphy, and paintings stored in the warehouses, but there was little ready silver left, only 30,000 taels recorded in the accounts. No wonder Mother Zhu had handed over the reins so easily. Real estate was immovable property. Without a deed signed by Zhu Yuan, I couldn't touch the core assets. Unfortunately, she'd overlooked one thing. Having written homework for so many rich boys in my childhood, mimicking other people's handwriting was my specialty. After taking stock of the assets, I took 100 taels of silver to buy myself several new outfits and feasted at the drunken immortal tower, savoring the life of the wealthy to my heart's content. But no sooner had I returned to the mansion than Mother Zhu sent for me. Her face was livid with anger, and she launched straight into accusations. I heard you withdrew 100 taels of silver. What did you do with it? Steward Zhu stood beside her bed, wearing a look of barely concealed schadenfreude, tattling over such a trivial matter. Truly, the Zhu family's servants were loyal to a fault, and as for Mother Zhu, she claimed to have given me full authority. Yet she monitored every cent I spent like a hawk. I couldn't help but sneer inwardly, even as I apologized profusely. It's all my fault, Mother. Hubby once said to me in Qingju that after we married, I should wear nothing but silk and satin, and adorn myself with gold and jade every day. I thought dressing too plainly would bring shame to the Zhu family name, so I bought myself a few new dresses. Little did I know it was just a casual remark. Even though hubby is a scholar, I shouldn't have taken every word he said so literally. I'll go return the clothes at once. With that, I picked up the garments and strode toward the door without hesitation. Mother Zhu shrieked behind me, "You, come back here!" Before I could step out the main gate, servants came rushing after me, pulling me back. "Young madam, don't be rash. How can the Zhu family return purchased goods? It would be an insult to the old madam and the young master." I ignored them, clinging to the clothes and trying to push past. The servants couldn't hold me back, so they fell to their knees, kowtowing frantically. Mother Zhu was carried out moments later, her face etched with anxiety. "That's not what I meant. Buy them. Buy whatever you like, I won't interfere anymore." Only then did I turn back to my room with the clothes in tow. 8. Using my grievance as an excuse, I locked myself in my room all day. In truth, I was plotting. If every cent I spent in this house was monitored, I needed to turn all this wealth into my own as quickly as possible. But to liquidate these assets, I needed a buyer with deep pockets, someone who could take everything in one go and keep their mouth shut. One person came to mind. Among my grandfather's students, there was an eccentric character named Song Keqing. She claimed to be from an imperial merchant family and lived in Yongju. Though a woman, she dressed as a man to attend an all-male academy. My grandfather, who had always been a stickler for etiquette, had surprisingly never uttered a single word of disapproval. I'd found her intriguing and once tried to befriend her, but she was a lone wolf who never fraternized with her so-called classmates. Naturally, she'd never patronized my homework writing business either. Our relationship was far from friendly. But right now, I needed to act fast. She had money. And she was right here in Yongju, the perfect candidate. I immediately wrote her a letter, saying I wanted to sell some jewelry and paintings. To my surprise, she replied promptly, asking no questions and telling me to bring the items directly for the transaction. This was just a test run, so I only selected 2 unremarkable jade carvings. We hadn't seen each other in years, but she still had that icy, unapproachable demeanor. I pinched my thigh hard and burst into tears. Ka-ching. My life is so miserable. My husband ran off with his lover with our money right after our wedding, leaving me with a bedridden old woman. The medical bills alone are draining our funds, forcing me to sell off the family heirlooms. Cut the act. Song Keqing leaned back in her golden Nanmu chair, regarding me with an amused smirk. "Cheng Shuoxin, I know exactly what kind of person you are. Your grandfather named you Shuoxin, Snowheart, yet you've grown a black heart instead." My sobs cut off abruptly, tears still glistening on my cheeks. Had I given myself away already? I blinked nervously, my heart sinking. I couldn't afford to lose such a promising buyer now, but her expression didn't change as she slid several banknotes across the table toward me. It doesn't matter, though. I'm willing to do business with you. Bring me whatever else you have, I'll take it all. At the sight of the money, my eyes lit up. I couldn't help counting it. 5,000 taels. Exactly. I'd never seen so much money in one go before. My mind was flooded with the joy of getting rich, and I barely registered what she said next, nodding along numbly. 9. I hummed a tune as I walked back to the Jew mansion, but as soon as I stepped through the courtyard gate, I saw Steward Jew standing in front of the screen wall, his face like thunder. Young madam, his voice was stiff, his gaze piercing me like a knife. Where have you been, now that I had money in my pocket? I felt bolder than ever. I arched an eyebrow. Do I need to report my whereabouts to you? Steward Jew's face froze, but his tone grew even more aggressive. After you left the mansion, 2 jade carvings went missing from the warehouse. The servants sweeping the courtyard paused at his words, whispering among themselves, and they call themselves a scholarly family. Thieves, the lot of them. I heard her grandfather was just a lowly teacher, poor as a church mouse. It's no wonder she's got sticky fingers. No wonder the young master didn't even touch her. If I were him, I'd run away in the middle of the night too. Steward Jew looked on triumphantly, holding out his hand to me. Young madam, hand over the stolen goods at once. Otherwise, when the old madam finds out, slap, a crisp slap landed squarely on Steward Jew's face. He stumbled sideways, a bright red handprint blooming on his cheek instantly. His wrinkled face was contorted with disbelief, and the whispers around us fell silent as death. I shook my tingling hand, stepped forward, and glared at him fiercely. Steward Jew, in this mansion, I am the master and you are the servant. Since when do servants dictate how their masters dispose of their property? Furthermore, the old madam herself said I am to take charge of the household from now on, and no one is to disturb her. If you still don't know your place, get out. He clutched his cheek, his lips trembling with rage and shock. You. I turned my gaze to the gossiping servants. They bowed their heads in terror, but it was clear they seethed with resentment. How amusing. I was selling my own family's belongings. What business was it of theirs? Just because they were servants in a wealthy household, they thought they owned the place too. They were so loyal to the Jew family, the very same family that held their indentures and had reduced them to slavery. I'd originally planned to return their indentures and give them severance pay to let them go home, but if they loved being servants so much, I'd sell them all off instead. Dozens of servants would fetch a pretty penny. Just then, a young gatekeeper came running over in a panic, shouting, "A letter from the young master." 10. My heart skipped a beat. He'd said he'd be gone for at least 3 months. Could he really be coming back already? I reached out to take the letter, but he bypassed me entirely, handing it straight to Steward Jew. Steward Jew's chest swelled with pride, and he shot me a triumphant glance. Letters from the young master are always read by the old madam first. If you want to read it, young madam, you'll have to beg her permission. I rolled my eyes and followed them to Mother Jew's room. Mother Jew unfolded the letter with delight, but her expression quickly darkened as she read. Mother, what's wrong? I asked, seizing the chance to take the letter from her hand. I couldn't help but stifle a laugh as I read it. 10. Ju Yuan and Ju Fu had gotten themselves into trouble in Yangju and now needed 10,000 taels of silver to bribe their way out. He hadn't taken enough money with him when he left. So he ordered the family to quickly exchange silver for banknotes and send them to Yangju. Mother Ju grabbed my hand and said, Shuashin, there are still 30,000 taels of ready silver at home. Hurry and exchange it for banknotes to send to my son. I nodded eagerly. I'd been worrying about how to convert that 30,000 taels into banknotes, and now the perfect opportunity had fallen into my lap. After exchanging the silver, I went to the West Market, where I stopped at a civilian postal service. I bought an envelope, sealed it with wax, so no one would know what was inside. First, though, I detoured to a funeral supplies shop and bought several banknotes from the Heavenly Earth Bank. The shopkeeper said the money from the underworld was worthless, so I bought large denomination notes worth 1,000,000 taels each. I couldn't let him suffer any grievances. After all, After sending the letter, I wrote another one to Xianxia, telling her to come to the Zhu mansion as soon as possible to collect the goods. Thinking for a moment, I picked up my brush and wrote a third letter. Then I tucked the 30,000 taels of genuine banknotes into my pocket and returned to the Zhu mansion. 11. Mother, something terrible has happened. I rushed into Mother Zhu's room. Right after I sent the letter, I happened to receive another one from hubby. I took it directly. But I never expected him to say he's sold all our farmland and the ancestral house. Mother Zhu was drinking medicine at the time. She choked and spilled it into her windpipe. She coughed violently for a long time before taking the letter to read. The letter stated that there had been a new development in the Yangzhou matter, and it was now necessary for the Zhu family to sell all their assets and move to Yangzhou. He had already signed a contract with the Song family of Yangzhou, who would come to take possession of the property soon. However, he emphasized at the end, "This matter concerns my official career and cannot be elaborated on. Suffice it to say, it is a great opportunity. I have already purchased a mansion in Yangzhou. Mother and wife need not worry, just follow the escort agency to Yangzhou." I pretended to look worried, but Mother Zhu only frowned for a moment before relaxing. "What are you panicking about? Didn't my son say it's a great opportunity?" She carefully examined the letter, confirming that the handwriting was indeed Zhu Yuan's, and then completely set her mind at ease. She ordered the servants to pack their luggage, but no sooner had she spoken than a servant reported that the Song family had arrived to take over the mansion. 12. Xianxia, followed by several capable assistants, walked straight up to Mother Zhu. "Old madam, there's no need to pack. This is the sales contract signed personally by your son. 13 shops, 800 mu of paddy fields, 2 manors, and this ancestral house, including all furnishings inside, have all been sold to me. Please take a look." Mother Zhu's voice trembled. "Everything in this mansion has been sold?" "Yes," Xianxia replied calmly. "According to the contract, every blade of grass, every brick and tile in the mansion, including the carved canopy bed you're lying on, now belongs to me." Mother Zhu's eyes widened in shock. "How is this possible?" I quickly interjected. "Mother, hubby said this matter concerns his official career and cannot be explained in detail. Could something have happened to him in Yangzhou?" Mother Zhu froze, looking confused. Just then, another servant reported from outside the door that the Wei Yuan escort agency had been commissioned to escort the old madam of the Zhu family to Yangzhou and was now waiting outside. Mother Zhu thought for a long time, and finally said, "My son must have his reasons for doing this. Let's go." I helped her onto the carriage. The servant stood trembling behind, asking, "What about us? How will we get there?" But the Wei Yuan escort agency had not been hired to transport the servants. Mother Zhu clung to me, saying she had a few trusted servants she wanted to take with her. The rest could be disposed of as I saw fit. I nodded and said, "Mother, go ahead first. I'll settle the servants and then come meet you." Dozens of Zhu family servants looked at me eagerly. "Young madam, how will we get to Yangzhou?" "By carriage. The journey is dangerous. We need an escort agency too." I smiled at them. "As for you, a human trafficker will come to collect you soon. He'll decide how you get there." "What, a human trafficker?" The crowd panicked. "I'm the old madam's confidant. How dare you sell me?" "The old madam loves when I massage her shoulders. When she finds out, you'll regret it." I ignored their cries, walked straight through the courtyard, and exited through the back gate. A carriage was waiting there. I climbed in, picked up the brocade box inside, and opened it. Stacks of banknotes lay quietly in my palm. I counted them, exactly 5 million taels. "Let's go." The carriage rolled forward, heading in the opposite direction. Returning his mother to Zhu Yuan was the greatest kindness I could muster. Hiring the Wei Yuan escort agency hadn't been cheap, and I hadn't even made him pay on delivery. He should be grateful. 13. I couldn't go to Yangzhou, and I couldn't return to Qingzhou either. My plan was to go to the prosperous Yuzhou, buy a mansion to live in, purchase a few hundred mu of fertile farmland, and invest in several shops, then live the rest of my life collecting rent. I leaned against the carriage wall, imagining my bright future. Glancing out through the fluttering curtain, I realized something was wrong. This wasn't the way to Yuzhou. I quickly hugged the banknotes tightly to my chest and called out to the coachman, "This doesn't seem like the road to Yuzhou. Did we take a wrong turn?" The coachman was an ordinary-looking middle-aged man. He didn't turn around, only grunted, "No wrong turn, madam. This is the road to the capital." The capital, my heart tightened. And a chill ran down my spine. I'd hired the coachman myself, and I'd clearly told him to go to Yuzhou. "Why are we going to the capital?" "I want to go to Yuzhou," the coachman replied. "My master wants you in the capital." "Who is your master?" "My master is Princess Qinghe. At least she wasn't here to steal my money." 14. Bad news. I'd been kidnapped to the capital. Good news. I got a free mansion. Song Kaching. No, Princess Qinghe was a deeply scheming woman, but fortunately, she was generous with money. She hadn't made me do anything terrible after kidnapping me to the capital. She just often brought me letters to forge. That is, until one day, the content she asked me to write was extremely heinous and treasonous. A few days later, the crown prince was accused of treason, demoted to a commoner, and imprisoned for life. I finally remembered what she'd said during our first transaction. "Instead of using your skills to help those men climb the official ladder, you should help this princess seize power." At the time, though, I'd been blinded by money and hadn't paid attention to her words. I trembled as I packed my belongings, preparing to run away. The princess stopped me and sincerely expressed her political ambitions. "I know you've seen all the hardships of the world since you were a child and have long resented this unjust society. You may think I'm using dirty means to fight for power, no different from those corrupt people, but to change this unjust world, one must first seize power." She took my hand, and when she looked up again, her eyes were filled with tears. "Walking this path with me will be difficult. We may die, or our hands may be stained with blood. But if our hands are stained, we can create a clean world for others." I shuddered. She was even better at acting than I was. How shameless. This was a crime punishable by beheading. I clutched my bundle, ready to flee. Her expression darkened. "Cheng Shuoxin, think carefully. You have already become this princess's blade, and it has already tasted blood. You have no choice but to follow me down this path to the end." I froze, then turned around, gritting my teeth. "Don't you know how dangerous this is? I need a raise." 15. I began to move among the court officials, lobbying and winning them over to the princess's side. Many of them had once been my grandfather's students. When I visited them with a letter introducing myself as the descendant of an old friend, they would always remember the kindness my grandfather had shown them and give me some face. Many officials were unwilling to take sides, mainly for fear of choosing the wrong camp. Now, with me acting as an intermediary, they believed most people would side with the princess, so their worries diminished. Many civil servants who had previously been ambiguous or even opposed to the princess flocked to her. In just 2 years, the princess had become the most powerful figure in the court. As her chief advisor, my status rose with hers. I was privy to almost all major court affairs as soon as they happened. When the list of successful candidates for this year's imperial examination was released, the Minister of Personnel immediately presented it to me. Although these men were now qualified to hold official positions, they still had to wait for vacancies to be appointed. Some would receive appointments soon, while others might wait for years, and there was no guarantee they'd get a lucrative post. Besides luck, it mostly depended on connections. So every year before and after the imperial examination, these scholars would visit various officials, seeking someone to attach themselves to. Coincidentally, tomorrow was Minister Pei's birthday banquet, and all the scholars hoping to curry favor with the princess would attend. To join the princess's faction, they all had to pass my scrutiny first. I had originally had no interest in Minister Pei's birthday banquet, thinking I could meet with the scholars one by one another day, but he had specially circled several names in red on the list, men who had once studied under my grandfather. He thought these fellow disciples deserved special consideration, but among them, I saw an unexpected name, Zhu Yuan, 16. After hesitating for a long time, I finally decided to go to the Pei mansion. After all, he was still my husband on paper. My sudden arrival at the banquet took Minister Pei by surprise. He was about to step forward to greet me when an angry shout rang out, "Cheng Shuoxin, Zhu Yuan flew into a rage as soon as he saw me. He pushed his way through the crowd, pointed at me, and cursed, "You shameless woman, how dare you show your face here?" Minister Pei turned pale with fright and quickly stepped forward to pull him aside. "Mr. Zhu, watch your manners." Zhu Yuan didn't notice Minister Pei's strange expression. Thinking he didn't know the whole story, he explained hastily, "Minister Pei, don't be deceived by her. This woman is my family's unscrupulous wife. 2 years ago, she secretly sold all our farmland and ancestral house, stole all our family property, and ran away with a lover. She caused my mother to die a homeless wanderer, my sister to fall into prostitution, and ruined my official career. Such a venomous woman deserves to be executed. She must be here today to bribe officials for her adulterer, seeking an official position for him." He paused, a look of resentment flashing in his eyes. "Although she is Master Cheng's granddaughter, she has an evil heart and has disgraced his reputation. Fellow disciples, don't let her use the bond of teacher and student to manipulate you." After saying this, he ground his teeth in anger. He had married me originally to use my connections. Now that I was at Minister Pei's birthday banquet, I was unattainable to him. He hated me bitterly and could only label me with the most vicious slurs to ruin me. Minister Pei's cold sweat soaked through the back of his official robe. He was about to say that Zhu Yuan must have mistaken me for someone else when he heard me laugh and call out, "Hubby." He was instantly scared out of his wits. 17. "Hubby," I said, my voice trembling with grievance. "You clearly told me to take care of the family estate back then. Someone offered a high price, and I knew such an opportunity wouldn't come again, so I sold it. What did I do wrong?" Zhu Yuan was choked up, a rush of anger lodging in his chest as his face turned purple with rage. He pointed at me, his fingers shaking. You're being unreasonable. I told you to manage it, not sell off our ancestral property. That was our ancestral home, our ancestral farmland. But," I blinked, tears hovering at the corners of my eyes, "we didn't have enough ready silver left. Mother needed expensive medicinal herbs to recover. If I hadn't sold the property, where would I have gotten the money? If only you hadn't eloped with your sister." I trailed off at the right moment, dabbing the corners of my eyes with a handkerchief. As soon as the guests around heard the word eloped, their eyes widened like copper bells, and they all pricked up their ears to eavesdrop. Zhu Yuan was both anxious and furious. "Don't spout nonsense. I only went traveling with Fua. Besides, why did you run away with the silver after selling the land?" I looked wronged. All that silver was spent on mother's medical treatment. Later, I wanted to go to Yangju to find you, but I didn't even have the travel money. If young Master Song hadn't rescued me, I would have died long ago. His face turned bright red. "Lies. You obviously had an adulterer. Young Master Song is probably him. The two of you colluded, acting with premeditation." He turned to find the Minister of Justice in the crowd, bowed solemnly, and said, "Minister Li, I beg you to see the truth. This venomous woman Cheng Shuoxin colluded with her adulterer to seize my family property and ruin my family. Please arrest them both and throw them in jail immediately." Minister Li had been eating melon seeds, completely engrossed in the drama. He was so startled when Zhu Yuan called his name that he dropped his melon seeds. He coughed dryly. "Scholar Zhu, this is Minister Pei's birthday banquet, not a court of law. If you have a grievance, you should file an official complaint according to the law. How dare you make such loud and reckless accusations here? Furthermore, you keep claiming that Miss Cheng, this madam, committed adultery and seized your property. Do you have any solid evidence?" Zhu Yuan snorted coldly. "That adulterer is the evidence. How could a woman like her establish herself in the capital? Who does she live with? Who is she here to lobby for today?" The more he spoke, the more convinced he was of his own evidence. "Just arrest that young Master Song, and the truth will come to light." "Where is this young Master Song?" 18. "Young Master Song, maybe we shouldn't look for him." Seeing my evasive attitude, Zhu Yuan became even more certain he was right. He ground his teeth, insistent on exposing young Master Song. As soon as Minister Pei heard young Master Song, he lowered his head in thought. Princess Qingha's maternal clan was the Song family, imperial merchants from Yongju. After a moment's consideration, he patted Zhu Yuan on the shoulder and said, "Scholar Zhu, Today is my birthday banquet. Let's discuss this another day. Zhu Yuan was already completely enraged. He glared sharply at Minister Pei. Are you intentionally covering for them? Could it be you know the truth too? Do you know who young Master Song is? This. Minister Pei wiped the sweat from his brow and whispered in his ear. Young Master Song is by no means an adulterer. You'd better drop this matter. To Zhu Yuan, these words sounded like a confession of guilt and favoritism. Out of respect for Minister Pei's position, he shouldn't have persisted, but he was unwilling to let it go. Just then, an imperial eunuch's loud voice rang out, Her Royal Highness the Princess has arrived. Everyone stared in shock as Princess Qinghe walked forward slowly. Thud, thud, thud. All the guests in the garden, regardless of their official rank, knelt down instantly. The scholars present all looked delighted if they could make an impression on the princess. Their trip here today would not have been in vain. Zhu Yuan was even more overjoyed and surprised, for he recognized Princess Qinghe as his former schoolmate Song Keqing. He immediately knelt forward a step, raised his head, and said, Your Highness, do you still remember me? The princess smiled faintly. Of course. You're Zhu Yuan. He was ecstatic, almost losing his composure. Minister Pei tugged at the corner of his robe, but Zhu Yuan glanced at him contemptuously. Your Highness. I want to accuse Cheng Shuoxin of colluding with a Song merchant from Yongzhou to commit adultery and seize my family property. Minister Pei and Minister Li are trying to cover for them. Please, Your Highness, do me justice. 19. In Zhu Yuan's eyes, although the officials present were fellow disciples of his grandfather, the age gap was too large, and they had never truly studied together. Princess Qinghe was different. She had entered Master Cheng's private school in the same year as him. And they had indeed attended classes together. Their bond was naturally special. Originally, he would have had to swallow his pride today out of respect for Minister Pei's position. But luck was on his side. The princess had arrived, and she was his schoolmate. Now he would avenge his humiliation. Trampling all these scoundrels under his feet to vent his anger, he raised his head triumphantly to look at me, but couldn't help but freeze. Everyone else was kneeling on the ground, only I stood upright. After a moment of shock, an evil smile crossed his face. Probably thinking I was ignorant of court etiquette, he said to the princess, This shameless woman Cheng Shuoxin refuses to kneel before Your Highness. Allow me to teach her a lesson on your behalf. With that, he stood up and raised his hand to slap me across the face, but before his hand could fall, a heavy slap landed squarely on his own cheek. What audacity! How dare you disrespect Director Cheng? The head nanny beside the princess was specially tasked with disciplining others on the princess's behalf. She had trained hard, mastering a skill for slapping, ensuring it was painful enough to leave a lasting mark. Usually, the princess was gentle and benevolent, so the nanny rarely got to use her talent. Today, she had finally seized the opportunity. Director Cheng was the princess's confidant, with the privilege of not kneeling. Disrespecting Director Cheng was equivalent to disrespecting the princess herself. Zhu Yuan was stunned by the slap. What Director Cheng? 20. Director Cheng. The title the nanny had used was the official position the princess had secured for me. Although it was only the 6th rank, I was the princess's confidant. In charge of confidential documents and correspondence, even high-ranking officials treated me with deference. Zhu Yuan clutched his cheek, his ears buzzing, his eyes filled with shock and confusion. No, how could the princess appoint her as an official? The princess must have been deceived. He tried to grasp at his last straw. Your Highness, do you remember? Back then at Master Cheng's private school, she secretly wrote homework for others and was punished by the master. She has been immoral since childhood, don't believe her. Furthermore, it's a fact that she colluded with that young Master Song. Just summon young Master Song to confront her, and everything will be clear. Please, Your Highness, summon him. He must be in the capital. Very well. The princess raised an eyebrow, then turned and sat down on the main seat. I am here. How do you wish to confront him? Zhu Yuan didn't understand. Please summon young Master Song to confront her, Your Highness. I couldn't help covering my face and saying, Zhu Yuan, are you blind? Isn't young Master Song sitting right in front of you? Zhu Yuan's expression froze completely. The guests' gazes toward Zhu Yuan had shifted from curiosity to pity. Even Minister Pei couldn't bear to look, turning his head away. My mother, the imperial concubine, was from the Song family, imperial merchants of Yongju, the princess said, picking up her teacup in a calm voice. When I studied under Master Cheng years ago, I dressed as a man and used the name Song Keqing for convenience. My father, the emperor, acquiesced to this. 2 years ago, when old Madame Zhu was seriously ill, Lady Zhu sold all the Zhu family's assets to me, using a contract signed in your own handwriting. She lifted her eyes, her gaze piercing Zhu Yuan like an arrow. Did you just say that I colluded with Director Cheng in adultery? All the color drained from Zhu Yuan's face. His lips trembled, and after a long while, he managed to squeeze out 2 words. No. Then do you still wish to accuse Director Cheng? He gritted his teeth and bowed his head. No. After saying this, he tried to retreat. Wait, 21. He stopped in surprise. I walked up to him, sneered, and said, there are some things that need to be made clear. Your mother was safely escorted to Yangzhou by the Wei Yuan escort agency and only passed away after being handed over to you. You say I killed your mother, but isn't it more likely that you found her paralysis a burden and left her to fend for herself? He shook his head in terror, trying to refute, but no sound came out. As for your sister Zhu Fu falling into prostitution, I took a step closer, staring into his constricting pupils, and said word by word, she went to Yangzhou with you. I'd like to ask, how did she end up there? Could it be that after squandering all your money, you personally sold her to a brothel? No, you're lying. Zhu Yuan looked like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. He avoided my gaze in panic, shrinking back. It was an instinctive reaction of extreme guilt. His response said it all. A collective gasp of horror and whispered insults broke out around us. The scholars and officials who had previously felt a trace of sympathy or neutrality toward him now looked at him with undisguised disgust and contempt. I turned away from him, bowed to the princess, and said, Your Highness, this man is vile and unworthy of being a husband. I wish to divorce him. Please grant me permission. Granted. As soon as the princess spoke, Zhu Yuan's legs gave way, and he collapsed to the ground like a pile of boneless mud. Minister Pei hurried over to check on him. He lay on the ground, his pupils unfocused as he stared at the sky, his spirit completely broken. 22. The following spring, the emperor passed away, and the princess ascended the throne. I became a palace secretary by the new emperor's side, in charge of drafting imperial edicts and deliberating on memorials. With a stroke of my vermilion brush, I issued government decrees. Another year passed, and I was commissioned by the emperor to inspect all provinces, investigate official administration, and observe the conditions of the people. On the day I arrived in Yangzhou, I sat in my carriage, reviewing memorials, when I suddenly heard a shrill cry from ahead. A ragged woman threw herself in front of my carriage. A ferocious man chased after her, roughly grabbed her by the hair, and cursed, You little bitch, I bought you with silver, how dare you run away? The woman's face was forced upward, and the moment our eyes met, she froze. Although we had only met a few times, I recognized her at once. Zhu Fu. The man dragged her to leave. I suddenly spoke. Stop. Intimidated by my aura, the man froze when he saw the official robe I was wearing. He immediately put on a vulgar, fake smile. My lord, she's a prostitute who ran away from the Wanhua pavilion. She's defiled your eyes. I'll drag her away right now, right away. I frowned. A prostitute? Yes, I have the indenture papers as proof. The brothel keeper hastily pulled a crumpled piece of paper from his bosom. I didn't even glance at the so-called indenture papers, only said coldly, in the first year of Zhaoming, when the new emperor ascended the throne, an imperial edict was issued to the whole country, banning brothels and whorehouses. No woman in the great Zhu dynasty shall engage in prostitution. Those who privately operate brothels or coerce women shall be severely punished according to the law. The ringleader shall be executed after the autumn harvest, and accomplices shall be exiled 3,000 li. The brothel keeper's face turned ashen instantly, and he knelt down with a thud. Spare me, my lord, spare me. I bought her in previous years. After the edict was issued, I didn't dare anymore. bought her in previous years. I glanced at the accompanying young Jew prefect, Prefect Li. Do you not understand the meaning of the word ban? Prefect Li knelt down with a thud. My lord, these women are already ruined and can hardly marry. Other than serving men with their looks, they have no other way out. I sneered. The new law stipulates that all women in the Great Jew dynasty are entitled to land. It is legal for women to study, engage in business, take the imperial examination, and establish their own households. As the parent official of a province, can you not even arrange for a few women? He wiped the sweat from his forehead and nodded repeatedly. I will immediately seal the Wanhua pavilion, properly resettle the women inside, and severely punish all those involved in accordance with the law. The brothel keeper shouted injustice, saying that except for Ju Fu, the other women were voluntary, and he only wanted to give them a meal. He even called other women from the brothel to testify. My lord, we don't know how to do business or farm. If you don't let us serve men with our looks, you will cut off our last way to survive. If the emperor really cares about us, why won't she let us choose for ourselves? I walked slowly up to her, lifted her face, and said, a choice is only voluntary if you have options. Being kept may be pleasant for a while, but narrowing your path leaves you with no choices at all. The emperor banned women from prostitution so that all women in the world would have choices. If you insist on degenerate yourselves, refusing to strive or fight, and obstruct the implementation of the emperor's edicts, you will be guilty of the same crime as the brothel keeper. The guard stepped forward and dragged the ashen-faced brothel keeper and his accomplices away. Ju Fu was still trembling violently. She looked at me, her lips moving as if she wanted to say something, but in the end, she only lowered her head and let out a whimper that sounded like both crying and laughing. At this moment, among the crowd beside her, a woman suddenly raised her head and asked, is this true? Can women establish their own households and receive land? I looked at her and nodded. The imperial edict has been issued to the whole country, so it is naturally true. If anyone dares to violate the law, whether they are court officials or noble families, they will be punished according to national law. The woman said joyfully, great, then I can take back the farmland that was seized after my husband died. And my daughter will have food to eat in the future. The ceremonial procession started again, and the wheels rolled forward. Inside the carriage, I spread out paper and brush, and rewrote today's memorial. Once, I only schemed for a full meal. Now, I use my brush and ink to rewrite justice for the world. The stroke of the vermilion brush is not the end. Finally, this mortal world has become somewhat worthy of cherishing.